world record. I mean, a boy from Tema or no, I'm interviewing him. We get stuck, struck at points. And the same thing that's happening to me here. I have the pleasure of interviewing Benny Bonsu. We also come on me a clapping sound. No. Woo. For many who do not know her, she is now director of daily content at the Olympic channel. He works with the Olympic people. I mean, Olympics here a big event, and if you get to produce content for the world, it's an amazing thing. Anyway, talking about the Olympic dream, I'm sure the Olympic dream means a lot different, a lot more to a lot more people, differently to a lot more people. We would try and make sense of how she's capturing these dreams on tape and allowing people to tell their own stories. Benny Bonsu Akwaba.
Papa Mdasi, why that introduction was special. Thank you for having me.
But you're gonna 822 saying. Wow. It's funny how a lot of our brothers and sisters who are not even born here speaks better Twi than some of us here.
Yeah, woman offense why?
Offense in Ashanti region. Fantastic. Yeah, been now call UK.
Oh, that's 92.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
Your woman offense so na me ba Accra from the age of 3 to the age of 11. Now we call London.
Oh wow.
We call it 92. My God, that's a long time.
That's a long time.
Old.
That's a long time. And something I can't. The sister boys are call London 2 days cry. And you are London is 92. Wait, boys go 2-3 days here. My lafana there. Anyway, it's good to have you. It's good to have you in the studio.
Thank you.
It's good to. How have you been?
Tired. Busy. We've had a busy two years. We have a busy year ahead. So I've been tired, but I've been very well. I can't complain.
All in preparation for the Paris Olympics?
Yes, Paris 24 is coming up. We also have the preparations for the Winter Games in South Korea in January. No rest for the wicked.
I'm sure this time it's not for the wicked, but for the hardworking. But for many who don't also know, his brother played at the NBA. Pops. Someone we all looked up to when we were growing up. For people who love basketball, you know him. But you follow basketball as well. You've really done a lot of work in basketball, especially in the UK and all that. Yeah. Even for the NBA and the Africa relationship, you're so involved in there.
Yeah, because I got involved in basketball at the age of 16. And I started as a journalist, so I used to write about it. But then I realized that there wasn't a niche market for the African players within the NBA. Yeah. So I focused on just the African players.
Telling their stories.
Yeah. Serge Ibaka, where does he come from? He came from the Congo. He's a war child. Yeah. Bismarck Bayombo as well. Then Papaya Pops also went into the NBA. And then over the years, NBA came to London. They wanted to set up an office in London, and I was the person that helped them set up in London, but also help them understand the landscape of basketball in the UK.
It's quite different.
It's very different to what it is in the United States. So we did that, and then, carried on working with them. In 2012, I moved to Ghana. I actually came as a holiday. It was the first time I returned since I left in 92. Yeah. So 2012, I came for a holiday and ended up working for Viasat 1 as head of productions. So I was there, and former president of NBA Africa, Amadou Gallo-Fowl, flew to Ghana. 98.9. Need you to come and help me do NBA Africa. And that's where we started with the NBA Africa in South Africa. Now, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
They have the BAL.
It is really a big deal.
It's huge.
But I love the relationship Rwanda, for instance, is building with the NBA.
Oh, of course.
They've built an amazing
arena in Rwanda, amazing arena in Senegal. But the sad thing is, when Amadou came to Ghana in 2012, and we brought Chris Bosh to Ghana, D. Wade came to Ghana, we have Serge came here. Ghana is the one that started doing, let's be strategic when it comes to basketball. Back then, working in partnership with Yao Sechi.
Yao Sechi.
Back then. But we started that here. The conversation of NBA Africa actually happened at Viasat. And then I returned, and since then I've always been involved. But I also sit as a board of director for Basketball England in restructuring the growth of basketball in the UK. So Basketball Dir is part of my DNA. Okay. I don't think I'll ever stop working in it because we want to really shape it. It's not just sports, it's a business. And that's why I'm involved in it.
But let me, disappoint you and announce this to you. I'm sure you already know about it, that we don't have a standard court in Ghana. Oh. So our national team cannot even play qualifiers in Ghana. We are still playing on concrete. How do you feel? Someone who is neck deep in basketball, as you said, Varsat, you brought, NBA African president, in Ghana, you all started here, but the likes of Rwanda and Senegal just commissioned their, indoor courts just some few months ago. 6 months ago. It's amazing. This is Senegal. And we keep talking, but a lot more countries are doing stuff.
I want to be disappointed, but I'm not. And the reason why I'm not disappointed is that now we have the right person leading basketball in Ghana.
Okay.
The new president of Ghana basketball, Mr. Ato Van Essen, very good. I met him only a couple of months ago.
Okay.
And, I wanted to hear what he was doing. And to my surprise, the gentleman said, Benny, I have a 5-year plan.
Okay.
And the plan was the most concrete strategic plan for growth of basketball that I've ever seen in Ghana.
In Ghana.
Previously, when the previous people were in charge, I tried to help. But the attitude that we had back then with those group of people was, you women coming to tell us what do you know? I've got all of it. But what it is, they've got to confused. I'm not the woman you can do that to.
Yeah.
So I used to fight with them all the time. But this new president has a vision, and he also understands the business of sports.
Yeah.
So his 5-year vision, he said, what do you need? Of course, courts, because we don't have it.
You don't have it.
We don't have it in Ghana.
Yeah.
We can never talk about why Ghana is so successful in basketball if we're not invested in them. But that also has to come from the top. It's not just us talking about it. Yeah. What is the leadership of the country doing to support? What we don't want to do is for people to leave Ghana, become successful, and then we claim them as Ghanaians.
That's what
when
we
we haven't invested. But this new president, he has a great vision, and support he needs a new court. Yeah. He needs to understand how policies are put in place.
Sure.
He wants to understand how we grow as a business. So we're currently actually working with him quietly in the background and connecting him and how he can get the support. But we need the Ghanaian government support to grow the sports.
And that's hosting a problem, no one. Getting the government to commit to it. I know the government, of course, they've done a lot in terms of infrastructure, but there's still a lot more to be done to bridging the gap, But do you think basketball will in the hall in Ghana? I'm sure say you're interviewing a lot more people on basketball. Of course, last week or so, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I interviewed Sprinters Knights, a basketball team in Ghana. They went to Nigeria, Ivory Coast to win stuff, so we interviewed them. And I saw that these are potential. These are young people. They are investing their time, energy in a sport. For not sounding cynical, as in Nasubienio, do you think that there's that in the show for young people playing basketball in Ghana?
There's so much talent in Ghana. There's so many academies doing amazing work in Ghana. The question we need to ask ourselves is that do we just want to carry on focusing on the growth of football, which we know we haven't been successful in football in many years.
Many years.
We like to think we are. We're not successful. We're not even halfway there.
Yeah, sure.
But imagine if we invested the same amount of opportunity and energy in developing other sports, not just basketball, but let's look at women's netball. Let's look at women's cricket. Last week, the Olympics did a piece on water polo in Ghana.
98.9
Basketball, we have potential. I think we have at the moment over 13 Ghanaian young people that are in the United States on scholarship. What are we doing here to support those young people? Because those young people have the talent to go all the way. But if we don't support them, the ones there, but also we don't support the ones here, how do we expect it to grow? The good thing about basketball is that, young people that do basketball, it's not just about the sport. It's also about education. If you know people that do basketball, you can't play unless you have a degree.
Yeah. Or college basketball, get drafted into the NBA.
You need it. So we need to move away as Ghanaians. Football is the number one sport. Basketball, for young people is the number one sport. They're more interested because it comes with a culture.
In fact, about 4 years ago, research told us that basketball is the most liked sport
Of course.
in our second cycle institutions.
Of course.
At the
Why
secondary
we
school
invested?
level, they love basketball more than even football.
Yeah.
So it tells a lot.
Yeah.
It tells a
Young
lot.
people move with basketball.
Yeah.
And I think we live in this past dream of, Ghana Black Stars. Yeah, but it's important to have Ghana Black Stars. But can we focus on basketball? Can we focus on cricket? Can we focus on other things that we know we have the talent and skills for?
Yeah.
But basketball itself, like I said, the young people in the United States now, Ghanaian kids, that are out there working hard, that one day will make it. If they've gone all the way to make it abroad, why are we not looking at the talent here that we can develop ourselves? We need to invest.
Yeah. Growing up, for instance, I don't know if you've observed, in the 80s, the height of an average Ghanaian was very short.
We're short people.
But from the 90s babies coming, the Gen Zs are really, really tall. They are, I don't know what they're eating, but my kid brother is taller than me. They are really, really tall. So yeah, I think there's a prospect in there. Into me, I enjoy Juma. And before about that, he didn't come off Jenison. He said something very interesting. But you remember Janice, yeah. Menje Benny taught one who said there's no failure in sports. Do you agree?
I do agree.
He was asked about the fact that they didn't play in the finals, they're out, whether it's a failure. And he gave a very interesting answer to that. I would like to play it so you hear it. So
Okay.
I'll taught one. Then we go on to the conversation. And there's something I also want us to talk about is career path and the job you're doing. Many people, young journalists like myself, yes, I'm young.
If you're young, I'm very young.
I'm young, yes. So, have the dream of also doing international sport and all that. What should they do? What should they know? But you
asked me the same question last year, Eric. Okay, do you get a promotion every year on your job? No, right? So every year you work is a failure. Here you work towards a goal, right? Which is to get a promotion, be able to take care of your family, to be able, provide the house for them or take care of your parents. You work towards a goal. It's not a failure. It's steps to success, And if you've never, I don't want to make it personal. There's always steps to it, Michael Jordan played 15 years, won 6 championships. The other 9 years was a failure. That's what you're telling me. I'm actually a question. Yes or no? Okay, exactly. So why you asking me that question? It's a wrong question. There's no failure in sports. There's good days, bad days. Some days you are able to be successful. Some days you're not. Some days it's your turn. Some days it's not your turn. And that's what sports is about. You don't always win. Other people's going to win. And this year, somebody else is going to win.
If you say explosive, if you disagree with him.
I agree with him.
You agree?
I do agree with him. Because if you go to somebody and said you're a failure,
Yeah.
a failure is where there's no way to return. Right?
Yeah.
I know that they haven't had a successful season. They had a bad season, but they will learn from it and they will come back stronger.
Yeah.
If they were not going to ever come back, that's when you call somebody a failure. But how can you look at somebody like Giannis and you know that if he was 100% healthy, do you think that the Bucks would be knocked out?
No.
They would not be knocked
Yeah.
out. Giannis is the face of the NBA. He's the future of the NBA.
For my MVP.
Can you imagine? But some of these journalists, and and as a former journalist, I have a problem with it.
You're still a journalist.
I
When you're from
in my gene, I am. But you cannot look at athletes and think you can just ask any rubbish questions and get away with it. They are humans.
Yeah.
You have good days and you have bad days, and we need to know that. Don't do things for click. I always say this: don't do things that will give you fame for 15 minutes. Do something that people can remember you for. You have the opportunity to speak to Giannis, and your question is are you a failure? Are you serious?
to me, frustration or Janice in his response. Yeah,
he was very good because if it was me, oh no, it would be a problem. It would be a problem. But no,
Yeah.
I don't think. I really loved his response, and I think Giannis, and it's important because Giannis 2 weeks ago talked about the mental health. He said, before we even won the championship, I was going to walk away from basketball, even though I had a over $2 million contract because of my mental health. But I did the training, I did the counseling, and I came back stronger. And then you have a journalist that come and say you're a failure. It's honestly when you go
But journalists, question be Ibisa, you know.
But you have to do your research. You can't just show up at a press conference with any
but when
questions.
My dream say the question, even though you may think say yet the right question at the right time, but also brought this another side of the player, Mabepe, how he handled himself. Quite also answer question. The question was asked, Emra or Mefimu, so emotions are very high. But how or carrying is something me pay.
Yeah.
So even though you may say a bad question, it's giving us the opportunity to know another side of the player, which is very good.
And it's very true. Giannis is a lovely person.
Yeah.
I've met Giannis. I know Giannis. Giannis is never going to be that athlete. Giannis is not Draymond Green. Giannis is not Draymond Green.
Interesting you mention it.
It's true because he's a terrible guy. Giannis will always be a leader. Giannis will always be human first, and then he'll be an athlete third.
Yeah.
He knows what the sport has given him and his family. He knows he lost his father, so everything he does is to honor his memory. Yeah. But he's never going to be the athlete that will react in a way that you'd be like, oh, I cry, this guy cry, what's wrong with him? But I also think in a generation in which we live in, it gives the younger people somebody they can look up to as a role model. Yeah. And that's what he is.
Yeah. Odin say also athletes, whether football, basketball, athlete should be immersed in social media. A lot of the issues in the free. The abuse, affect your mental health, even their performance sometimes. Do you think that they should? If you are managing an athlete, like, let's say me, would you encourage me to be on social media?
It has its ups and downs.
Sure.
I mean, if you're asking people like the Stephen Appiers and Asamoah Gyan's of this world, they didn't have social media in their time. So if they had social media at that time, they'll probably be worth even more than they're worth. That's the pluses, because you get a lot of revenue, a lot of sponsorship, because you have a personality and you're sharing it with the audiences. Now, the downside is that everybody has an opinion, good, bad, or terrible. So on the downside, you've got to then deal with that if you choose to. I know a lot of athletes that do not read the comments or the blog their comments, so they don't see it. But I also think that social media, when it comes to mental health, plays a huge role on the athletes' mental health and their well-being. So on that side, I say no. And my younger brother who passed away last August, he worked at that time as the head of Twitter Sports. And the work he was doing with the Premier League players, and you're thinking, oh my God, some of the messages people sit behind the screen and send, like, is everything okay? Yeah. So it's not always positive, but also the other side is that you hear from the athletes directly. They don't hear from us, the journalists. Yeah. They hear from the athletes directly, so we don't have to make things up. So
98.9 FM.
I want to avoid asking you this question, but you brought it up.
Go on then, ask me.
May contemplate me team say mbisa. I'll let it pass for now. Maybe later on in the interview I'll ask you.
Okay.
I want to ask you about grief.
Yes.
But I will do that later.
Oh.
Maybe say me dilute conversation this year.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll ask that later.
Okay.
Because I have never been able to deal with grief completely. And I want maybe say have you dealt with it, losing
my brother?
Your brother.
I don't think I will ever deal with it. My younger brother was almost my twin.
Yeah.
There was nothing, if you see me, you see Benson. We're both called Benny. And we both worked in the sports industry. If you see me at an NBA game, you know Benson is around the corner.
Yeah.
If you see my Premier League event, he's around the corner. But, this actually thank you for asking me that question, because it gives me an opportunity to talk about something that's killing a lot of black men. Benson passed away with colon cancer, which kills a lot of black men. I think is 1 in every 3 black men is suffering from colon cancer unknown. Benson was diagnosed 2.5 years ago. But by the time he was diagnosed, it was at stage 4. Because at stage 1 and 2 and 3, there was no symptoms.
Wow.
And the 2 years that he had, we almost lived life with urgency. So, Benson, what do you want to do? Do you want to go to Abu Dhabi? Do you want to go to Dubai? What do you want to do? We've got to do everything now. And we did it. We did everything we wanted to do. But we knew that the end will come.
One day.
One day soon. And how we knew we were going to deal with the grief, especially me, because he was leaving me behind. he's sad he's going, but he's even sadder knowing.
So okay, Metideo Kanasia, he knew at this point, probably this year, I won't see the following year. Me, the following year. So he knew.
The doctors will tell you.
Wow.
So the doctors told him, and we started doing counseling together. You know, how do I cope when he's gone? But also, how does he cope?
Even time I'm not testing now, you're preparing yourself for the aftermath.
Every week, we did 2 weeks, 2 days of counseling every week, just to talk about it. And also kind of reflect back on what we've done, because between us, we've achieved a lot. And we're the least two people you'd even think to achieve a lot. We grew up in Tottenham. Tottenham in London is not the most posh part of London. That's where we grew up. And now, you know, he was the director for Fiat, the Fiat group. So he was doing the adverts for the Fiat 500, Chrysler, Jeep. He was the man behind all those adverts. Benson also was winning advertising awards in London as one of the best. Then joined Twitter. So you see all these African athletes and American athletes, Premier League, basketball, rugby, all the sports. He was the one that's verifying every single one of these athletes and working very closely with them and building their brands. And he was only 33. 33 years old. So in the last 3 months, we worked really hard to understand why this was happening, but also to reflect and celebrate what we have done over the years. And what we could do better. And his concern was, just because I'm gone, it doesn't stop you from the vision we have for sports in Africa. One of their visions was the BAL, you know, and he's like, I want to see the tip off of the BAL. And at that time, they'd given him a bag, so he had to wear a bag on his stomach because he couldn't go to the bathroom like normal people. So we flew to Rwanda. We saw the new arena. We took loads of pictures. He went to meet the teams that he had helped verify and build their profiles. Spent time with Amadou Galofal, who was the president of MB Africa, who came to Ghana to get me to get involved. You know, we watched the first game, we watched the tip-off. He had all the people that had been involved around. We did that. He wanted to go and see a tea plantation, so we took a helicopter ride around Kigali to see that. We came back, we went to NFL games because he wanted to go to the NFL games. He supported Tottenham. No, they're not the best team in the Premier League. But, you know, we went to the Tottenham games as well because these are the things he wanted to do in the last couple of weeks. And I guess, you know, that when the time came, they moved him from the hospital to a hospice. And one of the last things he wanted was, Benny, can you please get all my boys around? I want to watch football with them. This was 3 days before he passed. And we did that. And the boys then left. He then said, Abena, I want you to take me for a walk. This is the only time you can carry me. Because he had lost so much weight. And we sat in the garden and he just stared at me. He goes, first of all, when I'm gone, nobody else can be your best friend. I said, okay, Mate. So you have to get money.
98.9 FM.
That's the first. So second thing, I don't want you to be sad. Because we've achieved everything we said we're going to do. Because, you know, when we're younger, we used to write, we're going to do all of these things. So I don't want you to be sad. And then he thanked me. And of course, he's like, you can't cry. I don't want you to give anybody the satisfaction of crying in front of them. Don't cry. Because we've done it. Everything we said, we've actually done it. 2 days later, he was gone. And it's sad because you get days where and because the house is quiet. I moved to Madrid. He comes to Madrid. He's the one that set up my whole house. You know, his room is very quiet. Nobody can go to his room. The house is very quiet. When he was around, it was always loud. It's my house, but his boys will always be in my house. It really was his house. It's very quiet, but there are days where I smile because I'm like, man, Benson did that. That was Benson. I see the Fiat or the Jeep adverts. That was Benson. Or Twitter would be doing like, well, not with Elon Musk because Elon Musk taking over is a bit nonsense. But the grief, I don't think you ever get over it because it is hard. You know, in my office at the International Olympic Committee, Benson had a desk next to me. You know, and my boss would be like, man, I miss Benson coming in and trying to order everybody around because his sister's in charge. You know, it's hard. I don't think I'll ever get over it because he's a part of me. But I also try to celebrate the fact that at a very young age, the boy did a lot. And we can't forget that. That was my twin.
You see why I didn't want to ask? You know, I mean, you
Sorry, am I making you sad?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I miss my sister too. But you trust, I mean, you trust. For the young journalists, what should they know besides the work ethics, the culture, and all that? We are an international media organization. First of all, it is saying the culture in there and all that. I want to understand so that people will get you, because a lot of people have more dreams of working there one day, where you work, the BBC, Sky, whatever. What should they know even before if the opportunity comes or may not even come?
You have to be ready. I am incredibly fortunate to work for the International Olympic Committee. There's very few people that can say they're doing that or have done that. My job as a director within the organization is not easy. You know, people hear daily content. It's like, well, what is that?
Yeah.
Daily content is somebody who's responsible for every piece of media you see across all the platforms for the Olympics.
On Twitter,
YouTube, on the website, when we have game time, you know, what you're sitting at home, what you're watching on the screen during the Olympics. I've got to oversee every single thing, which means I've got to know everything.
Yeah.
And not just one sport, not just basketball.
No.
I have to know all 45 different sports and what happens in it. I need to know how to qualify for it, who are the athletes, who are the best, who are the worst, which country does the best, which country's history. But most importantly, understanding the different policies. All these broadcasters around the world are streaming from what we're doing to their TV. I need to know what NBC needs. I need to know what BBC needs. I need to know what France TV needs. You need to know everything. The young people that I mentor here in Ghana and the young people I mentor in the UK, you know, when your parents say if they're reading one book, you read two, that's a real thing. Because as a black person in an international committee, you need to know more than the person sitting next to you. Because every day is
standard near almost high, always, for people of color.
Because you have extra eyes on you. If somebody else who wasn't me had my job, they'll have pressure, but they won't have extra pressure. And then if you're especially the first person of color in that position as well, they're looking at you to see if you can do it.
Yeah.
Because that's what will open the door for the next person who also looks like me. So you have to stay ready. You have to be prepared to learn. Like, if I tell you that my parents, when I went into sports, yet my mom and dad are typical Ghanaian parents. Okoye sports hayeden. Benny, you don't want to be a doctor. My mom was a midwife. My dad is a lecturer at Achimota.
Okay.
So how can you, where is the sports coming from? They didn't understand.
Yeah.
But now when I hear my mom telling her friends about, hey, did you see her that she was on? And I'm laughing because I'm like, you are the same person who didn't want me to.
And interesting say, initially they'll have reservations, but Omo and be your number one support and number one fan when you get to the very high level.
For sure. I mean, I have to tell you, and I have to, at this point, I have to shout out my uncle, Bishop Osebonsu of Mampong.
Bishop Osebonsu.
That made my opinion, you know.
Nice.
He's the reason why I went to London. He's the one that took me to London.
Oh, okay.
But also growing up, looking at him, he used to travel a lot. You know, he's going to Rome, he's going to Germany, he's going to London, Turkey, he's going to all these places. And then you have all these people from different places coming to Ghana to also visit, go to Kumasi, do things. Yeah. And I'm looking at this man, he was always reading. He's always reading something. He's writing books, he's lecturing, and he knows a lot. So when I grow up, I want to be like Uncle of Uncle Bishop.
Bishop, yeah.
And then you see that and you're like, actually, the world is not so small. Or the world's not so big that I can't achieve what I want to achieve. So for me, I had him as an inspiration, but also I had my mom who was working 3 jobs in the UK to put food on the table for us. So for me to now be at an International Olympic Committee, I cannot be the one that went there and got comfortable because I think I've got to the top. Yeah. I have to do more. Because I also know that I have the vision for sports, infrastructure in future for Africa, because of what Africa can achieve when it comes to it.
You think about sports and business. Usually, it looks like we look at sport from the leisure, point of view. As we are not able to maximize the full potential in sports in terms of the business side. Kwan bɛn bit me afa so even for our football who did they cry no, we've not been able to maximize the commercial bit of it, the merchandising bit of it. Kwan bɛn bit me afa so what can we learn from Omar Mayibidida?
First of all, the people in leadership or running the country need to understand that sports actually adds to the socio-economical growth of any country.
Yeah.
The UK, the US, they don't invest in sports because they're bored, because it's leisure. No, because the return is so much higher. If you look at the format of Paul Kagame of Rwanda, Senegal built the arena first. He saw what was happening in Senegal. The sports tourism went up because they were holding international events.
Yeah.
In Dakar. Dakar will host the first Youth Olympic Games in Africa. Ever. Why are they doing that? Because they have the infrastructure. And the infrastructure they don't have, they're building it because they know the return that will come with it. Within 6 months, Paul Kagame has built an arena in Kigali. Within that 6 months, the NBA's focus on basketball went to
Rwanda.
Kigali. Now, Rwanda also going to host the World Cycling Championships. They're currently also hosting the World Ironman Championships. You see, all the international sports are now going there. Ghana, we have such a huge potential when it comes to sports. We need to move away from the leisure. It's not leisure, it's business. If we run it well and put the infrastructure to get these international competitions, the revenue we will generate will be crazy. You look at the year of return. Maya, some nice marketing campaign, fabulous. The money we made out of the tourism from December to January to Easter, can we reinvest that and build proper infrastructure for sports?
So why don't we have a sports bit of the year of return?
Of course.
So when people come to Ghana, it's not only about the party in the dirty December, but they get to enjoy maybe a basketball, they get to enjoy maybe a football.
But it's bigger than that. Because if you've then reinvested and you're building facilities, and when I mean building facilities, not some small facilities. If you're going to build a basketball arena, don't build a 10,000 or 5,000 arena. You build a 10,000, 15,000. Why? Because that's an international standard. If you're building a football pitch, build an international standard. Once you have the international standard, you can then go to FIFA and say, oh, but we have 3-4 stadiums. World-class standard arenas that we can host CAF, that we can host the next World Cup. You can go also, if you have a basketball arena, you can go to the NBA, you can go to World Volleyball, you could go to tennis. You can say we have a world standard arena that can host the tennis tournaments or the World Volleyball Championships. All of a sudden, not only are you bringing international sports into the country, but the sports tourism for Ghana also goes up.
Yeah.
That then, the revenue for that is even higher. Then you have more turnover to build more infrastructure to generate more.
98.9.
Start thinking as a business. The Olympics is not successful because it's leisure. The Olympics is a multi-billion event.
True.
How can we as Africans start to think of it that way so we can also win? That's how we've got to start thinking. Yes, it's not just for enjoyment.
You see Ghana African Games now. It a bro ho sa the boha ne the boha see mfasho botiman after you see Legon Krame can so we are renovating the Legon stadium to host some of the games. Does this also goes to show say as is serious when it comes to sports infrastructure? Because Morocco, and what you say, Morocco, in terms of football, and they are hosting all the games now. Oh, Morocco. It goes to show say we are serious in this regard.
I think I don't want to be too critical of what's going on because I don't know the full picture.
Yeah.
But what I can say is that, look, if we want to be successful, you can't have people that don't understand sports running sports. You need to have people that understand sports and the business of sports to run sports. You look at, and also we have to be intentional.
Yeah.
If the president says tomorrow, I want to be intentional about developing the business of sports in Ghana, then for the people in charge to have a strategic vision, they have to be intentional. I am building this arena because in 2 years, 3 years, I want to host the World Cup.
Yeah.
This is the amount of money I want to make out of that. That's intentional. We don't want to say, I'm going to build the arena because we want one. That makes no sense to anybody. So in regards to what you're saying with the Africa Games, it's unfortunate that it has been postponed to next March
Next
because
year.
a lot of athletes, that's where they're going to qualify to go to Paris. Some may not, some may have to go to other competitions to qualify because Ghana was postponed.
Yeah.
But for us, if we want to be taken seriously on a global stage, we have to be intentional, we have to be strategic, and we have to understand the business of sports. At the moment, we don't. Because if we did, our Black Stars will also be flying, for example. Because, Charlie, you look at our national team and the support they have globally, and then you look at the support in place to actually develop it, you're like, oh, there's a mismatch.
And match it.
A match.
Match it. You hear the road to the Olympics next year. Dear Namoya Shrunko from the previous Olympics.
I mean, previous Olympics in Tokyo was a lockdown.
Tokyo, yeah.
Obianco, you're all watching it remotely.
On TV.
And
I realized that the content that was coming up was really, really great.
Oh, Charlie,
and they were
work hard.
they were really strict about it. If you post a video from the Olympic Committee,
Oh, Charlie.
what can't you know? I will go for 2 weeks suspension.
We don't play around. We don't
Two
play
suspension.
around. We don't play around with that. But that one, it was hard. It was
Yeah.
hard because the fans are at home. They're not in the arenas.
Yeah.
And we had to be really creative on how we make the content engaging and interesting. It was sad for the athletes because
The
Charlie,
Twitter game was massive.
we rode out.
Yeah, Twitter game was massive.
It was no joke.
Yeah.
But it was sad for the athletes because, some people work for 4 years to get to the Olympics.
Sure.
But for Paris, it's exciting. It's the first time humans can come. But also, it's the first time that for the opening ceremony, we're going to be doing it on the River Seine. That's never happened before.
Wow.
So we have 135 boats.
The opening ceremony.
The opening ceremony is on the
I will
river.
refuse to.
Yeah.
Ghana and Kebia River Pra and Asa and Cobra and Asa.
It's on the River Seine. You see the picture of
Galamsey River. Galamsey.
No. It's
Over Chabi. It will be a serious.
it's going to be on the River Seine with the countries and
Yeah.
boats, rolling around with concerts on each side. It's going to be a wow. But it's exciting. The athletes are excited. It's a city of love. It's a city that loves sports. It's a city where the Olympics first started. But it also marks 100 years that women first participated in the Olympic Games. So we're really, really excited about next summer. The work for it is no joke.
Yeah.
But again, as a Ghanaian first, I'm really looking forward to a Ghana team that will represent us well. But most importantly, it's just seeing all the athletes compete with real fans in the stadium, watching them, watching their dreams come true. I think for most athletes, it's not even winning. It's the fact that they get there.
They get there.
That's the most important thing because
98.9
Olympics is
FM.
a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Me just say we engage a lot of athletes from elsewhere, and even by speaking to them, what even just being at the Olympics means to them. Do you have the same feeling? Do you have the same impression when you speak to athletes from Ghana, from Africa?
I do.
I say you're crazy about the Olympics.
The problem is, we have some incredible Ghanaian athletes. A lot of them are working in isolation without the support in place for them to be what they could be.
Yeah.
So how do you make somebody who's struggling by themselves excited about potentially the biggest event of their lives? So for those athletes, what do you say to them apart from encourage them to keep going and not stop? But it's also about how we as a nation, we see sports in general. Or do we only care about football? And if we only care about football, when was the last time Ghana even qualified to go to the Olympics when it comes to football?
Greece, I think 2004, Athens. Athens.
How many years?
We got kicked out a year group stages. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as a nation, we have to, again, being intentional with sports. We have incredible athletes. Let's put the support in there for them to be excited about it. As somebody who's there, sitting at the top. The first thing I want to see, every games I've worked at, I'm looking for the Ghana flag.
Yeah.
You know, I was
Yeah.
in Beijing. We had our skier, Carlos.
Yeah. Carlos.
Just him. Walking with 5 people behind him. But he's been training by himself this whole entire time.
Yeah.
But we are claiming him. The boy grew up in Switzerland. Paris is coming. How many of our people are we sending? We know that our National Olympic Committee is here doing the work, but we need to get the rest of the nations behind them to really back our young people. But I think there's a lot more we need to do when it comes to sports. How serious as a nation are we about sports? Not just about football, but as sports as a whole. We did an incredible piece on water polo, of young people doing water polo at East Legon last week. And you're like, it would be amazing to have the first African team from Ghana at the Olympics. But again, we need to be intentional.
Support. Enko phase when Kamis Kaka, na we am atwade near to nkomade no so. Emmanuel Emma will say Benny Bonsu is speaking so well. God bless her pa. But when why did you try to put her on a tight corner about her door to door? Oh, awuli. Say me kase me mbisa o. Na manui.
It's okay.
But thank God she's stronger than you and your tricky questions. I will break up. I don't want to break up. Young to accommodate me. Madam Benny Bonsu in the Edin in common. Olympics covering for sports journalists here. I say Olympics near I mean the highest, the very best of the best. But for someone who is creating content, one of the fascination is that for instance for a TV production for a football game, it's just one pitch, and the full. But for Olympics, you are sometimes about 10 events happen at the same time. How do you manage to get all those content to the TV companies or more content? No?
So the work of the Olympics starts before the Olympics.
Okay.
So for every sport, we have a certain amount of writers and producers that are focused on that sport. Those writers and producers' job is to ensure they know all the best stories, the inspirational stories, and the ones that we expect to do something special at the games.
Yeah.
And we start maybe a year before the games, and we follow them. Now, when it comes to games time, again, it's that group of people, whether it's basketball, whether it's football, whether it's shooting, those people are responsible in making sure they don't miss a beat for every single one of those sports that they cover. I'll be sitting in the office and they'll say, oh, Benny, this person just did this. Is this a good one that we can post, or should we go back and get better ones? And my job is to make sure they're bringing me the best stories that we can then share on the bigger platform of theolympics.com.
What about stories? You about playing fields. Is there an opportunity for you to tell stories from different athletes, different people, even before the Olympics?
I mean, when I joined the Olympics, of course, if I'm there, then Africa has to be important. So all of a sudden, it's become a bigger story. We also know, because I mentioned this earlier, that the first ever Olympic Youth Games will come to Senegal. It's unfortunate it's not Ghana, but it's going to be in Senegal in Dakar 2026. So for playing fields, it was really important to highlight some of the young people across Africa that have the bigger goal of one day competing at the games. Now, we focused on 3 stories from across the board. Of course, we had Khalifa from Ghana, who's a very talented footballer from Nima Kings FC. Great future star for us. A young person from Nigeria, a young person from Gabon, a young person from Angola, a young person from South Africa, and another young person from Zimbabwe. And they all do different sports. So from footballer to basketball player, swimmer, BMX player, and a breakdown, because now breakdancing
in France, Paris,
is part of Paris Games. So it was important to tell the African story, but also in telling the African story, it's in making sure you're working with the local people to get the authentic story. Because you don't want us to come in and just do what we do in a brochure. That's not what we want to do. So when we came here to Ghana, we worked with a company called Amin, which is run by King Jan, along with a local producer by the name of Kukua. And they really help us get the Ghana story through Khalifa's story. Khalifa is a young man who lives in Nima, who plays for the Nima Kings FC. And he has this amazing, rich story about where he grew up, his story, living with his grandmother, but wanting to make it big. He wants to play for a big football team one day. But one day he just wants Ghana to be represented in football at the Olympics. And he wants to be part of it. This is a kid from Nima who wants that dream. Who am I? Who are you? Who's us to stop him from achieving that? And
interesting because usually we say, oh, I want to play for Real Madrid, I want to play for City, probably play for Ghana at the World Cup. So for him to even dream of playing for Ghana at the Olympics, very interesting.
What is bigger than the Olympics?
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah.
What is bigger than the Olympics?
Yeah, true.
But this kid has that passion. You know, he's not a kid that talks a lot. He's very quiet. He sits down. He's very reflective. You have to see the promo. Maybe I can show the promo with you. You can share it with your audiences. But Khalifa is a kid that you can see is the next Kudus if we pay attention and support him. But his story is so rich, and it's the same for the young girl in Nigeria who wants to be the first African canoeist in the Olympics. You know, because she wants to make her mother proud. Wow. These are the stories that we have to share, and the Playing Fields documentary, which launches on the 18th of May. The world premiere will be on the 2nd of May in Durban, South Africa. But it will go on 98.9 FM. You know, everybody can watch it for free. I really hope that the rest of Ghana can get behind Khalifa, watch his story, and really support his journey for the future.
Fantastic. The 18th of May.
18th of May.
World premiere.
World premiere on Olympics.com.
We'll keep an eye on it. Benny Bonsu, thank you very much. You know, it's beautiful. Charlie, me call Olympics. Let me
put it Olympic on. Badge.
Yeah, let me put it on. Charlie, me do that cry. Prince, we do that. Okay. My call Olympics aba. Anyways.
No match.
Thank you. Oh, you have your own one. Thank you very much. It has said very educative. Yeah, enjoy it. Hopefully we get to talk to you more on the show. Anytime you're back, you know what to do.
Of course, the manager. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been amazing.
Can't believe you tried to make me cry on air, but I appreciate it.
Sorry. Sorry. You're trying to say about you. So, Alan, at the Women's Premier League, photo finish, be analyzing the Ghana Premier League. Then, of course, you give you the chance to also speak on this show. Citizen Sika Tagos, good morning, OBB, and your guests' beautiful submissions on the topics of sports and good planning to get success, particularly as a nation at the Olympics. It is sad that if we have half the commitment of our leaders, the commitment they use in engaging in Galamsey, sports investment and athlete training, we will have a lot of medals in all major competitions we partake in. Keep it up and keep the good work up. How you link sports and Galamsey, it's amazing. It's fantastic.
He said what he said.
Charlie, we are too clever. We're going to see how you want to answer.